Cues, depression, they all kind of live in the same, in the brain, in the same location. And these depression swings, hey Kelly, depression swings, mood swings, a lot of this is hyper accelerated during the holidays because we reminisce, we've lost parents, family, friends, loved ones. All this can be increased. And what, as people say, oh, here's the, the keys to stop that. And we're still going to feel these feelings. There's no question. But if we can catch the triggers of what they are, it would help us to better kind of work through them in a way that doesn't, sink us emotionally. And there are several triggers. They can be sight. You see something. Similar traits. Oh, I remember that person had, blonde hair that was at my, my father's, funeral. Or when I was abused as an 8-year-old, I remember, she wore a silver chain. All those types of things visually can trigger an emotional uprising. Like that resurfaces again. And the way that commonly we deal with that is the self-loathing behavior. Oh, I'm just going to go in my room and, tear open a box of chocolates and just go to town, that sort of thing. Well, you have to realize that our brains work by seeing these triggers and responding. How we respond is entirely up to us. We can respond in that way, self-loathing behavior, chocolates, or whatever it is, beer, alcohol, or drugs, prescription or non. Or we can really realize, hey, this is how my brain is recognizing past issues. So sight is one. Interesting. In researching for this coaching call, sound is another element that appears to play a role in the brain. If you were tormented as a child by angry people or had an angry parent or step-parent or something like that, being around that can trigger that. My father was extremely volatile, so I don't like to be around anything like that. But I know that triggers that old response in me. And with me, I tend to be, I just don't want to be around it. I want to leave the situation. That's the way, I cope with it. Is that a self-loathing behavior? It's not the best behavior, but I'm getting better at it. So these are things that have to be worked through, through our lives. If you cried or hear someone, you'll notice if you hear someone cry or hear someone in pain, we all respond differently. I go into, how can I help that person mode? Some of you may go into, again, like I get with the anger, is you want to run away from it. So all these things play a role and usually pull from our past. The research that I've read, below the age of 15, these things start getting tooled in our brain. Pretty amazing how the brain categorizes these things. Everything that might have been in the place or situation prior, during, or after the abuse, whether it be mental or physical, can play a role. Okay. Another trigger is smell. I have a jewelry box of my father's belongings, and I open it up, and the smell still reminds me of my father. Interesting, right? His personal watch and his rings, old photographs, and it's kind of sealed up. It's a tight, I think it's teak or some sort of, but it's sealed. So that smell reminds me of my father, and it's precious to me. So when I open it up, I close it quickly because I want to retain that. You see? And it brings back positive memories. You see, for me. So again, smells also play a role. And I'll go the reason why understanding these are so important to dealing with your depression or your triggers, things that cue you to do things that you normally wouldn't do or throw you totally off track. Yeah, see? Touch is another one. Anything that resembles the abuse or the anguish something caused by what you feel, like a certain material, a certain wallpaper in a certain house, all those things Your brain is just amazing at remembering those nuances, and it will go back into that file cabinet where you had those files, and it will begin to look at what's there, and it will give you those emotions. Just keep in mind, and I'm going to keep bringing this at you guys, ultimately we choose how we want to participate in those emotions. We have that choice to do that. And then there's taste. When you eat a dish that my father made a Greek soup called lemon soup. Anytime I eat that or smell that soup, I think of my father in a positive way. So just realize these aren't things just within you. These are just things how the brain works. And with the knowledge of knowing that that's going to happen, this can help avoid, reduce, and in some cases eliminate these triggers that really throw us off track. You guys are all going to feel these in different ways. Some of you are going to be, oh, I touched this material. My mother was a designer, or the person who hurt my feelings the most, wore leather, all that sort of thing. That's not just within you. That's within all of us. But we have to begin to say, okay, that was an event. If it was a negative event, begin to put that in a place and time that doesn't bring back these negative knee-jerk reactions. It's super, super important. I hope that kind of makes some sense and kind of touches some areas in your brain. Now, how do we trigger that? If you know you're going to go into a family situation during this holiday season, and you're going to be around, I got patients who, or clients in the LBA, that their abuser is in that audience, someone that abused them in some way, mentally, physically, sexually in their childhood, and now they're at this family event. That's one of the reasons why people get so distraught at these events, because they didn't say anything, or it was resolved at a time, but they still have to physically see that person. That's probably the most difficult trigger. And what we have to realize is, and this is what was true to me, a lot of you know that I was abused at 8 years old by a housekeeper. But what you have to realize, for one thing, and I got some pretty extensive coaching on this, is that happened to you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or more. It wasn't who you are today. If you were a child like me, it was a little boy. It wasn't a grown man. Do you see the difference? I'm the same person in flesh and blood, but I'm not the same person physiologically, emotionally, and that's what we have to kind of focus on. If you have a current ongoing event, you've got to look at ways to deal with it in a more effective way, that you don't beat yourself up because of it, like I caused that. Like I could say, going back to my situation, I must have been a bad boy in order for that to happen. That's the first knee-jerk reaction. So since I'm so bad, I'm just going to seclude myself away and do whatever, eat terrible, don't eat, cut my wrist with a razor blade in several spots. There's all kind of ways people deal with that. Other than just, I was in a place in my life where a person that was doing those things just did them, and I just happened to be there. So for me, for my situation, it was just I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't me personally. If you guys can understand that, put up a 1. This is an important concept for dealing with past abuses, whether it's emotional, teasing. It doesn't really matter. The extreme nature of the abuse, it's just that it happened, and how we choose to continue to deal with it affects a lot of you, your health, your social life, whether you're married or single, what dynamic is happening there. And we cannot allow that to drag that through our adult lives, because it's not fair. Number one, it's not fair to us. It's not fair to our families. It's not fair to our coworkers and associates. It's just not fair that they have to deal with an element of our personality that they had no involvement in. Do you see? It's our responsibility to take it by the tail and say, okay, this happened, or I'm resolving this situation, and this is how I'm choosing to deal with it. This is something else that needs to be brought up. personally feeling shunned or taking things very personal. This is a big, big problem, and I see it a lot. I see it with members in the academy. I see it in I don't get too much in the interpersonal relationships in the office, but I see it in general. I'm going to read this from Maureen. Traumatic event at the beginning of the year and it's had hard for. Okay, so if I read Maureen's statement, she had a traumatic event in the beginning of the year. This is 12 months later. Do you see? I know Demi had some trauma. She posts that freely in this group. So they're going to happen. There's no question these are going to happen in our lives. And being a member of the LBA or any other group, or it's not going to stop that. My goal here is to give you guys better tools to deal with those events. And taking things personally is one of them. A lot of you know, Amy's been with me for a long time, several members, and one of the first things they had to get past was everything being personal. I've had people, not many, a couple, be angry at me because I would be talking about these topics, and they would think they were being singled out because of them, and they would take exception to me, where I'm just saying, look, this is happening in all of us. But if this is brought up, it's like, oh, he's a mind reader. No, I'm not a mind reader. I have no psychic skills that I'm aware of whatsoever. These are just normal and natural in how our brains think. Someone doesn't want to come over, oh, they must be mad at me. Someone has to cancel an appointment, oh, they must be mad at me. That's got to stop. That will just drive you crazy. So taking things personal needs to be included in this depression aspect, because how many of us get invited to 4 or 5 different Christmas events and parties, and we choose not to go to a couple of them because we just physically can't do it from a time standpoint? Does that mean we have a personal vendetta against the person that we're not going to their event? No, it just means that we made some prior commitments or something, we just couldn't make it. Don't take stuff like that personal. A lot of the health problems we have are perpetuated by that social dynamic of taking things personal. Don't do it. Every time you think about doing it, oh, so-and-so doesn't like me, 99% of the time you are absolutely wrong. And a lot of you know this is true because some of you have addressed these since you've been in the LBA. You think, oh, it wasn't the way I thought it was. Okay? Trust me, once you begin, especially the holidays, this is a perfect platform for this. Once you go through the holidays, you're gonna with a number one. How many of you thought someone didn't like you or thought someone had a personal disconnect with you? You finally end up talking to them and realize that wasn't the case at all. Put up a 1 if that's true. I would say that's 95% of the time or more. It was just, something happened in my family's life and I had to do this and I couldn't call you back. I mean, I have some people that if I don't direct message them back right away, it's like, you're not hearing my question, or you guys watch me on Periscope, you're not answering my question. They take it personal. That's right. That's why I end my broadcast with, if someone cuts you off, don't take it personal. Because if someone cuts you off and you're still getting angry at them, you're totally in the wrong, in my perspective, and in my humble opinion, you're in the wrong perspective psychologically, because now you're saying that person did something to you versus saying that person just made a mistake. But I just happened to be affected by it. Do you see the difference in that neurodynamic? I'm telling you, that was a revelation for me a year and a half ago. And I never really got upset anyway when people did things driving or cut in front of me at the line. But now I look at it totally different. And I'm suggesting that if you folks that are super sensitive would begin to do that, you'll see things shift. Yeah. Because remember, well, why is that, one person may think, why is that a bad thing to get upset? Well, first off, it alters your personality. It changes you physiologically. It causes hormones to be secreted that normally wouldn't be secreted, adrenaline and all these other elements that alter who we are for several hours later. So if you're going to a family event or you're going to a meeting, you're not going to arrive there in the same mental state if you had not been hyper excited by taking something personal. You see? And remember, it's not that you're wrong for doing it. We're, here in the Lean Body Academy, we're so far beyond that. It's about how you choose to participate in a daily life event is going to have repercussions on the rest of your day and part of your life. You see, it's not wrong. You guys know me, and if you don't, you will, that I'm not here to chastise, make me right and you wrong. That's not the idea. I just want you to think about, realize that, and it forces me to as well, that our perception of realities is going to play a role in our future. And I know if it's like me, if you start thinking about, oh, this person doesn't like me, or this person's this, we're wrong a lot of the times. Does that kind of make sense? Put up a 1. The first time you begin to change your mindset, it's going to be difficult, because remember, it goes back to the teachings. You have made pathways into that thinking process, and that's the short grass. Remember the well-worn path. If you're always getting, and my mother and sister, drive with them in the car, they're the first ones to say, oh, that person's an idiot, they cut you off, and all this kind of stuff, right? And I sit there and smile. And what's interesting is they actually seem to get upset at me because I'm not upset. It seems to boggle their minds. But, it's not going to serve me to be upset. How is yelling at someone in your car going to really help that other person? And it goes far beyond just being cut off. It's the whole dynamic of how we perceive being treated in society. It's going to affect our whole personalities. That's just how the brain works. But we're the stagecoach. We have the reins of the horse. That stagecoach is going to do what it wants to do. We can direct it. And that's what I'm saying here is, for those of you that are new to the Academy, and you realize now that this is far more than just a meal plan or coaching modules. This is about looking at your life in a way, okay, how am I allowing these outside events to affect how I perform? Some of us have resistance to business or being social, and we have to look back, where did that manifest from? And how can I begin to improve that aspect? And I personally think we should continue to improve our lives, until we can no longer function. Once, again, this is my opinion, once we reach the point in our lives where we think we're set, knowledge-wise, we've learned all we can learn, I think that's the time that we kind of go down the hill. So that being said, let me go over these triggers or these cues that bring on these massive depression elements, especially during the holidays like this, okay? Sight. And 3 papers that I reviewed, they have sight listed as number 1, okay? If you have poor sight and you have a great sense of smell, I will put smell first. Just remember, the senses that we have, if we have bad eyes, you're going to have better hearing and better smelling. If you have bad ears, in other words, some senses will become more acute than others. So it's okay if yours is at the last on the list, but it's going to be toward your body. So their sight is number 1. What we hear, certain voice, certain tonation. I have a family member that's always grumbly, and it used to really bother me to be around that person. But now I can. And I figured out why I can. It's because that's just the way that person is. It's not me personally. You see the different dynamic, and it's changed my whole perception of being around that person in my social dynamic. Made everything so much better, because I'm sure that person felt that I was uncomfortable. Do you see? So that it wasn't helping things. And it was a family situation. That's just the way some people appear grumpy, some people appear quiet, some people appear to know everything. That's just their personality. It's not a attack on who you are. That's just who they are. You see the difference? So there's sight, there's sound, there's smell. Smelling something, like I said, my dad's jewelry box, after he passed away in 1995. That smell still comforts me. Interesting. I find that fascinating. Touch, texture of clothes. If someone that was very endearing to you wore leather all the time, or wore wool, or wore cashmere, and you feel that again, it's normal for those things to come back. Don't think that you're weird or, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. This is how the brain, it sparks memory. These are these neural pathways that we talked about. But we control what those neural pathways do to us, make us self-loathe, be socially disconnected. We control that. We can't control, the fundamentals of how our body brings in the information. We can't control how we, dissipate it out to the world and how we choose to let it focus on ourselves. And then there's taste. Oh, my yaya used to make this dish, or my dad used to make this dish. Pardon me. All these things will affect us. And everyone in this, watching this live or watching the replay, knows that you have certain triggers. No question it's a choice. But for a lot of people, these choices are kind of weird because they're like, oh, I touched this material and it brought back an old memory. And it could be a positive one, if it could be a negative one. For me, it was long silver chains, because I remember the sitter who sexually abused me had a long silver chain. When I saw those, you see how the trigger would come back? So recognizing those, thank you, recognizing those will go far in helping you to decipher why this is happening and why this puts you in a state that's not working for you. Okay? So let me summarize. You're going to be put in events during the holidays, situations that you would normally not go, but you're going there because it's Christmas, whether it's work, family members that you haven't seen in a long time, you get together, traditional things like that. Just remember, if there's someone there that you had a bad experience with, that experience happened some time ago. If there was a certain way that you don't care for it, that's just the way they are. Just realize they would act that way whether you were there or not. And that was a hard thing for me to kind of wrap my head around. If a person is grumbly and appears to be overbearing, they act that way whether I'm in the room or not. Okay? And it's made a whole difference in how I cope with people that I feel are socially difficult. Understand that you're going to be put in situations that that is going to happen. Accept that 100%. Now, the question you want to ask yourself is, how am I going to choose to deal with that? And you fall back on, maybe re-listen to this coaching call. We can't change out here. We can't change how we interpret it in here. So think of yourself as the ultimate deciphering device. You hear it, you see it, you smell it, you taste it, you feel it, and then you're going to get an impulse from that. How you reflect outwards that impulse is totally your choice. But realize, number one, it's a normal process. Everyone has it. Don't think that you're unique. Oh, all these emotions, we all get those. Smell my dad's jewelry box. That's probably the biggest trigger for me. But it's how we're set up as human beings to process information. Some of us choose to allow that normal tactile or smelling or seeing or tasting function to totally alter who we are as a person. See, and that's a choice we're making. And initially, you new members are going to be like, oh, this guy was his choice. I'm just going to, I'm so angry at him. But when you look at making a choice, that's exactly what we're doing. Have we ever made a choice and in hindsight say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have chose that. I wish I wouldn't have chose that dinner at that meal at dinner or something, trivial like that. But it's a choice. Well, these other elements are choices too. We just have to have more knowledge so we can deal with them more effectively. So today is what's the date today? Say the 19th. So Christmas will happen before my next coaching call. Yeah. So you guys are going to social events right now. Let me know, apply these principles during this period. Let me know how it goes. Is it going to alleviate these events? No, it's not designed to. It's designed to help you process them to where you're not affected, and then in turn you don't affect the other people in your lives. Does that kind of make sense? All right. That's it for today. Short, sweet. I want you to guys have a wonderful holiday. Thank you for trusting in me. Thank you for participating in the LBA. It's getting better all the time. those of you that need some re-edification, I did the first 2 introduction videos. I'll be redoing some more over the next several weeks, just to make things clear, better. One person has said that we should have a place where all the people in the world in the academy. I'm definitely open to that. That would be awesome. I think there's an application for that. If you know of an application that will do that, please let me know. And as always, let me know what you guys' needs are. This academy is built for you, not for me. I just have the ability to kind of go through the material and hopefully put it in a way that all you folks can really understand. That's my goal. Okay. Made a choice not to drink coffee this morning. See, that's it. Okay, that's the key. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on my coaching call, and this will be in your members area, and I'll talk to you again soon. Love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.